Frank works in a medical equipment store that stocks a variety of equipment, including some very unusual exhibits. One day, he decides to show his young colleague Freddie something interesting. He takes him to the basement, where strange metal containers are stored, which allegedly contain the remains of experimental samples from the military. Frank tells that earlier there was an accident. A substance called trioxin was created in order to reanimate dead cells. But the experiment failed, and instead the trioxin turned people into zombies. Frank even laughs, saying that this is the story that formed the basis of a famous horror movie. Fascinated by the story, Frank, in order to impress Freddie, hits the container. Suddenly, a gas leak starts and both lose consciousness, inhaling the vapors that instantly spread through the room. They regain consciousness after a while and notice that everything in the basement has taken on a frightening appearance. On the shelves were animal corpses for medical research, and suddenly Frank and Freddie see that these corpses have come to life. Freddie is shocked and Frank panics as he realizes that the gas actually works as predicted. It revives dead cells. On one of the tables lies a decomposed body that suddenly begins to move. Frightened, they decide to call their boss Bert, hoping he will help them make sense of the situation. When Bert arrives and sees the chaos that has ensued since the gas leak, he takes control of the situation. He decides that the best way to dispose of the bodies is to destroy them by burning them at the nearest crematorium. Bert takes the body, which is acting violently, screaming and trying to escape, and then goes to his friend Ernie, the crematorium manager. Ernie is at first shocked by the request, but Bert convinces him to burn the body, convincing him that this will fix the problem. When they finally burn the remains, they don't realize that the smoke from the burned body is spreading into the sky, taking the very same trioxin with it. The chemical-laden smoke rises into the clouds, causing rain, which in turn comes back down to Earth and falls back into the cemetery near the crematorium. Meanwhile, a group of Freddie's friends, including his girlfriend Tina, hang out in an abandoned part of town near the cemetery. They are having fun listening to music and dancing when it starts to drizzle outside. The rain falls in wet streams on the ground, including graves. Waiting for Freddie to finish his shift, the friends decide to hide from the rain in an abandoned building near the cemetery. But suddenly the silence is broken by strange sounds from underground. The rain has soaked the ground with a chemical substance, and under its influence the dead have begun to come back to life. At first it seems like just a rumor or a strange coincidence, but soon graves literally start shooting out of the ground, and zombies come to the surface eager to chase the living. Frank and Freddie, meanwhile, begin to feel physical changes after exposure to the gas. They both feel very weak, their bodies ache, their skin becomes pale, and their pulse becomes faint. Ernie notices with alarm that they are showing signs similar to decomposing corpses. He checks their temperatures and finds that their bodies are as cold as the dead. Shocked by what is happening, Bert and Ernie begin to realize that things are getting out of control. Not only are the animals and bodies in the morgue coming back to life, but the contagion is affecting those who have been exposed to the gas. Meanwhile, zombies that have emerged from their graves in the cemetery begin to attack Freddie's friends. They scatter in panic, trying to find shelter. Chuck and Casey make their way inside the building, hoping to wait it out, but they are threatened at every turn. Spider and Tina stay together, trying to escape the zombies' pursuit, but they don't know where to go. The zombies here are not like in the usual horror movies. They are fast, savvy, and can speak words. Their main motive is to hunt the living, and they utter one word over and over: brains. Freddie and Frank are in excruciating pain, meanwhile losing their strength and gradually realizing that they themselves are becoming like those who have been brought back to life by the gas. Ernie and Bert see that Freddie is no longer able to control his actions and fear that he too will soon become a zombie. It becomes clear to them that even if they try to save themselves, there is virtually no way out, as the zombies have surrounded their building on all sides. They become hostages inside the crematorium. Outside, the zombies, realizing that the living are inside the building, begin to lay siege to it. They ambush and create havoc, threatening anyone who tries to leave. Those who have already been victimized are subject to irreversible changes. Chuck and Casey find a temporary shelter, but they can't hide for long. The zombies smell the living and try to get in. Spider desperately searches for ways to escape, He is overcome by fear and the desire to survive. He sees his friends fall into the clutches of the zombies one by one. Tina decides to return to Freddy, hoping she can find him and help him, but finds him already half turned into a zombie. She sees the hunger in his eyes to eat his brain, and though Freddy tries to control himself, he can no longer resist. Tina backs away, unable to accept the fact that her boyfriend has now become a monster. At this point, Ernie tries to protect Tina by hiding her in the crematorium room, but realizes that Freddy will still sneak in despite the barriers. In a panic, Bert decides to make one last move and calls the emergency services, reporting a chemical leak and asking for help. The military personnel on the other end of the line begin a situation assessment procedure and conclude that the problem has become irreversible. They decide that the only way to prevent further spread of the contamination is to destroy the entire area. While Ernie and Bert try to escape and keep the zombies outside the crematorium doors, the military puts an eradication plan in motion. At dawn, the military launches a missile that destroys the entire area along with the infected and zombies, leaving no trace. The neighborhood is completely demolished and the infestation seems to be defeated. But the trioxin that was in the atmosphere is spreading again, moving with the air currents to neighboring areas.